Imagine going to a Pontiac dealership in America in 1960 and seeing nothing but huge cars that were almost 19 feet long, heavy and thirsty for petrol. A small car? Don't worry about it. Then, Chevrolet stops making the Corvair, which had a rear engine and was air-cooled. This shocks the market and General Motors itself. Pontiac, which is known for playing it safe, could have made a regular small car and called it a day. But they didn't. Instead, they made something so strange that engineers and customers alike would have to squint at the blueprints to figure out what it was. The 1961 Pontiac Tempest had a huge half V8 engine, a thin, curved drive shaft that looked like a steel cable under tension, and a transaxle in the back. A small car that broke all the rules and became one of the most bizarre car designs in American history. Pontiac had a tough job to do when it started in 1961. Make the brand's first small car, but make it different enough from Chevrolet's Corv so that it didn't look like a copy. At the time, the market was split in two. People who have always bought full-size cars are still doing so, but a new generation is looking for something smaller, more efficient, and still powerful. Pontiac didn't just want to go along with what everyone else was doing. They wanted a car that stood out from the rest. The engineering team took a route that few American cars have ever taken before, using ideas that few had the guts to try. This was not just a technical choice. It was a direct threat to the safety of traditional design. Every part of the car, from the layout of the drivetrain to the choice of engine, was designed to give drivers a completely different experience than any other compact car on the market at the time. The Trophy 4 engine was the most important part of the Pontiac Tempest. A daring and useful idea. Pontiac didn't make something completely new. Instead, they took half of their famous 389 cubic inch V8 and turned it into a 194.5 cubic inch four-cylinder powerhouse, with a stroke of 3.75 in and a bore of 4.06 in. The Trophy 4 was one of the biggest four-cylinder engines ever put in a General Motors car. There were two options for buyers to choose from. There is a one-barrel carburetor version with an 8.6161 compression ratio that makes 130 horsepower at 4,500 revolutions per minute. There is also a rare four-barrel carburetor version with a 10.25.1 compression ratio that makes 160 horsepower at 4,800 revolutions per minute. Those numbers were better than most American six-cylinder engines of the time, even those with bigger displacements. Cutting a V8 in half had an unexpected benefit. The empty space next to the engine where the other cylinder bank used to be made it easy to mount and service accessories like the generator. But this benefit went beyond how easy it was to keep up with. It also made the engine bay more open, which improved cooling and made the car feel less cramped, which is common in small cars. The 194.5 cubic inch Trophy 4 had a lot of power when it started up, which made it go very fast. The automatic gearbox version could go from 0 to 60 mph in about 12 seconds, and the manual gearbox version felt even quicker. With strong mid-range torque, passing on the highway and climbing hills were easy without having to constantly downshift. Even though a large displacement four-cylinder engine still vibrated, Pontiac's engineering kept the ride comfortable while cruising more than you might expect. The Tempest was great on the highway and stable and easy to control in corners because it was lighter overall and had a nearly even weight distribution. This wasn't an accident. It was the result of two brilliant engineers, John DeLorean and Bill Collins, thinking outside the box. In the early 1960s, DeLorean was becoming known as an engineer who could see paths that few others could. Collins was the one who could turn those ideas into real technical solutions. When they worked together on the Tempest project, their goal was more than just lowering the Trophy 4 engine's natural vibration. They wanted to make a drivetrain that had never been seen in an American car before. They carefully balanced the crankshaft, chose pistons of the same weight, and made engine mounts that let the whole power plant wobble so that vibrations didn't reach the body. This willingness to try new things led to Pontiac's strangest power delivery system ever, a transaxle layout mounted in the back. The Tempest moved the whole gearbox and differential assembly to the back and mounted it directly to the drive axle. This is different from the usual setup, where the gearbox is directly behind the engine. This was the first time that a mass-produced American passenger car had this kind of layout, which changed how weight was distributed and how the chassis was designed. The automatic version had a 2-speed gearbox and a 3-element torque converter. It was also air-cooled, which was a big deal. This setup had many advantages over most transmissions of the time, which used a circulating fluid cooler, better weight distribution between the front and rear axles, better traction, and a lower gearbox tunnel height that made the cabin floor flatter and bigger. The rear transaxle was more than just a brave engineering choice. It also made it possible to make a whole new type of drive shaft. Putting the drivetrain in the back let Pontiac use a narrow, curved drive shaft that worked on a completely different principle than most other designs. The Tempest used a forged alloy steel shaft that was only 0.625 inches in diameter for the automatic version and 0.75 inches for the manual version. This was instead of a straight heavy shaft that was subject to high torsional loads, like in traditional rear-wheel drive cars. The shaft could be made smaller and lighter by sending torque directly from the engine to the rear transaxle before it was multiplied by the torque converter or gearbox. The curved shape had two clear benefits: lowering the gearbox tunnel to make the floor of the car almost flat and bigger, and acting as a built-in damper to smooth out vibrations from the Trophy 4 engine before they reach the back wheels. 2 ball bearings encased in rubber mounts sealed and lubricated for life supported the shaft. The bearings were then heated and shot-peened to make them more resistant to wear and tear. This thin curved shaft and rear-mounted transaxle were a bold and creative combination that had never been seen before in American cars. The Trophy 4 was the main engine in the Tempest. But Pontiac also offered the 215 cubic inch V8 developed by Buick as an option for customers who wanted a smoother engine. This engine was made entirely of aluminum alloy, which was a new technology in the early 1960s that made it much lighter than the cast iron Trophy 4. It had about 150 horsepower, which wasn't as much as the Trophy 4 with the 4-barrel carburetor, but it ran much more smoothly and reduced the vibration that comes with a large displacement 4-cylinder. Along with the Buick V8, some markets also got an Oldsmobile F85 V8 version with the same specs that was also built on the aluminum alloy platform. These choices made the Tempest more flexible, appealing to a wider range of buyers, from those who wanted the raw power of the Trophy 4 to those who valued smoothness and refinement. But how did it do over time? When the Tempest hit the road, it became easier to understand what owners were going through. The Trophy 4 was built to last and could handle long-term use if it was taken care of properly. After a lot of miles, many examples kept running smoothly, but the vibration that comes with a large 4-cylinder never really went away. The optional aluminum V8 from Buick made the car run smoother and lighter, but it needed a lot of work to keep the cooling system in good shape. Not doing this often led to problems with gaskets or corrosion. The unique drivetrain, which combined a rear transaxle and a rope-curved shaft, was usually reliable. The thin steel shaft didn't often break down completely. Over time, wear usually showed up in the rubber-mounted bearings. The air-cooled automatic gearbox was the most obvious weak point. It tended to overheat when carrying heavy loads in hot weather. When the Tempest first came out, people in the media had mixed feelings about it. A lot of people were interested in the idea of a different kind of compact, a small car that was powerful and full of engineering solutions that had never been seen in American cars before. They liked how fast the Trophy 4 could go, how big the flat floor was, and how well it handled because the transaxle was in the back. But not everyone was ready to accept these big changes. Some buyers were hesitant because they didn't know how the new drivetrain would work, and they were worried about how much it would cost to fix, and how easy it would be to find a mechanic who knew how to work with it. People also said that the Trophy 4 vibrated too much and that the automatic gearbox tended to overheat in bad weather. The Tempest got a lot of attention and helped Pontiac stand out in the small car market, but being different sometimes hurt it. The Tempest was a great choice for people who liked new things and being different, but buyers who wanted something they knew and could easily take care of didn't want to take this chance. The differences in the Tempest became even clearer when it was put next to other cars of the same time. The Ford Falcon and Chrysler Valiant had a classic layout with the engine in the front and the wheels in the back. The gearbox was right behind the engine. A straightforward, tried-and-true method that is easy to maintain. Chevrolet's Corvair, which was also unusual, had a rear engine and air cooling, which made for a unique driving experience. The Tempest was in the middle of these two extremes. It had a rear-mounted transaxle and a curved rope drive shaft, which gave it a flat floor and balanced weight distribution, but it needed more specialized maintenance. It could compete with, or even beat some of its competitors in terms of performance, but some buyers were put off by its vibration and complexity. The Tempest was more experimental than the Falcon or Valiant. It was more useful than the Corvair, but not as crazy. The Tempest got a lot of attention for its bold engineering, but the rear transaxle and rope curve drive shaft soon showed problems that were hard to fix in the early 1960s market. The first thing was the cost of production. To make and put together this special drivetrain, more steps, specialized parts, and more skilled workers were needed. At the same time, competitors with traditional layouts could use existing production lines and parts, which kept prices low and profits high. Second, the complicated maintenance needs scared away a lot of regular buyers. Not every garage had the knowledge or the right tools to fix problems with the rear transaxle or the bearings on the curved drive shaft. This meant that repairs cost more and took longer. Finally, Pontiac changed the way it made products. By the middle of the 1960s, market trends favored solutions that were easier to use, easier to keep up with, and cheaper. To save money, GM also tried to make engineering platforms the same across all of its brands. As a result, the Tempest changed to a more common front-engine rear-wheel drive layout in the next generation, losing the unique design that had made it stand out in the past. This model has grown beyond being just a way to get around. It is now a symbol of a time in the American car industry when people were creative and tried new things. Not only is it rare, but it also has a historical story behind its bold design that caused a lot of debate. This is what makes it valuable to collectors. People take great care of the few that are still around, and they always get a lot of attention at classic car shows. It shows that collectors are willing to take risks and be different no matter what the cost. Many people are willing to pay a lot for an original example because they know it is a valuable piece of history that shows a time when American car companies weren't afraid to break the rules. This model is still an inspiration for modern designers and engineers, even though it is worth a lot of money. It reminds them that real breakthroughs can happen when you take risks and step outside of your comfort zone. In this way, it will always be remembered by car lovers as a special part of American car history. The Pontiac Tempest is hard to forget when you think about the history of American cars in the early 1960s. It was Pontiac's first small car, and it also showed how creative GM was and how willing they were to break the rules. The Trophy 4 engine, which was made from half of a 389 V8, the daring, slender, and curved drive shaft, and the rare rear-mounted transaxle on an American car are still talked about by car fans today. These new features made the Tempest stand out. But they also taught a very expensive lesson in how to experiment with technology in a very competitive market. What do you think of the Tempest's look and technology? Please leave a comment to let us know what you think. If you like stories about rare cars, hit like. Let your friends watch this video too by sharing it with them. And remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future videos.